Let's head to South Texas to check out some new border wall. That's coming up on today's Hot Zone.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
Hey folks, Chuck Holton here. You know, President Trump campaigned on the idea that he was going to build a wall between the U.S. and Mexico to stop the massive flow of illegal migrants coming across from the south. I've talked about this a lot, we've covered it a lot, but there's been quite a few developments since the last time we were down here. I think the last time I was in Texas on the border was Christmas, but I didn't really do much about the border wall. We just went into Juarez and gave out Christmas presents at the migrant camp there. But one thing we have seen is a massive decrease in the number of illegal migrants coming north. The biggest reason for that is simply perception. When the people get a perception that it's going to be difficult for them to get in, that they're not going to be able to just walk into our country, then many fewer of them decide to come. So we've seen a decrease of almost 100,000 a month over the last several months in the people coming from Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador, and elsewhere into the United States. But there's still something like 45,000 a month coming across the border. And we've talked about this a lot. You can change the pull factor, that is the programs and the opportunities that they have for getting lots of free money in the United States. That's not going to stop them all because many of them are just coming for a better job, and you can't really blame them for that. But that's not an asylum claim. You cannot come to the United States and just walk right in hopes of getting a better job legally. You're going to have to get asylum, or you're going to have to get legal residency and get permission to work here. Well, most of the people coming illegally for a better job are not going through those channels. They're coming in and working illegally under the table here in the United States. And so that's obviously something that's got to be dealt with. It's got to be addressed. And the best way to address that is by building a physical barrier, making it much harder to get across the border into the United States. Why? Well, first of all, because that border is going to be there for 100 years. It's going to be there. That barrier, if we build it, is going to stay there through successive administrations, presidencies. It doesn't matter what the policy is, that barrier will be there for generations to come. And because of that, it's going to be worth building right there. That right there makes it worth building. There's no doubt. Secondly, there are lots and lots of criminal organizations that are taking advantage of the fact that it's easy to get across the southern border to bring in drugs, human trafficking, lots of crime comes across. They just picked up some guys who were actually shipping weapons in from Mexico and using them to commit crimes in San Antonio or Austin, I believe. And they were able to bust that ring because they caught those guys bringing them across the border. Putting a physical barrier there makes it that much harder for them to get drugs and other bad things across the border. It's not just about illegal migration. So here's the problem. The president talked about building that border wall, and he has been stymied every step of the way by the Democrats, by the left. They've done absolutely everything they can. They are absolutely just rabid. They are desperate to stop him from building that border wall. And you kind of have to ask yourself why. Why are they so desperate to stop that wall from being built? Well, they know that it will reduce illegal migration. And illegal migration, believe it or not, is one of the ways the Democrats hope to solidify their hold on power because of something called apportionment. Now, we've talked about apportionment before with some of the guys we've interviewed from the Center for Immigration Studies and that sort of thing. But apportionment simply means that people who come into this country illegally actually do get a vote for people in Congress and the Senate. And the reason is because of gerrymandering, because of the number of people in any particular district determines how many representatives that district gets allocated. And so it doesn't matter if they're legal or illegal, they just count bodies. So if they can make, for example, Miami a sanctuary city, then Miami is going to receive a whole lot more migrants. They're going to get a lot of migrants in that city, and those migrants are going to increase the total number of bodies, and that will increase the number of representatives that they get in Congress. The estimates are that in the next election, illegal migrants living in the United States will account for something like 4 or 5 seats in the House, changing sides from Republican to Democrat, because they're congregating in these sanctuary cities. So this is a really, the Democrats are so desperate to increase illegal migration for that very reason. Okay. The Trump administration has been able to allocate something like about $7 billion. He's gotten some of it from the military. He's reallocated some funds that were already supposed to go towards border enforcement or security. And he's done everything he can to build a border wall. But so far they've only built something like 150 miles of border wall. And they need about 600. To really beef up border security. The places where it's really bad, they need about 600 miles, 650, something like that, miles of border wall. So there's a bunch of just regular Americans who have gotten together to contribute money to start building border fence on private property across the southern border. They haven't been super successful because so far they've faced a lot of challenges legally and otherwise. But today we went to visit one of those areas where We Build the Wall, led by a guy named Brian Kolfage, has done a great job of building some border fence. Take a look. This privately funded border wall project is almost done right outside of McAllen, Texas. It's 3 miles long and has 14,400 of these galvanized steel bollards that will keep this sugarcane field from getting trampled by the hundreds and hundreds of migrants who are coming across here before they put the fence up. And Fisher Industries, the company that's doing it, says they've got lots of more projects planned. Every time they started to build one of these projects, they get a lot of legal challenges and pushback from opponents of the wall who think that they shouldn't be able to do this. And so they've had to spend a lot of their money on legal challenges, but so far they've overcome every one of them, and I think that's going to make it easier going forward. In the case of this project, they had a butterfly sanctuary near here that brought suit against Fisher Industries to try to stop them from building the wall. This is the National Butterfly Center, which is maybe about a mile from where they're building the border wall. And this is one of the groups that really heavily picketed the project, trying to get a stay put on it, and took them to court. And the big reason that they're giving that this would harm the area is not that it's going to harm the butterflies. Obviously, butterflies can fly around a border wall, but that they did not have to go through all of the normal vetting process to make the border, before they did the building of the border wall. They didn't have to go through the normal environmental studies, which take years. I mean, legitimately years. That are very costly and are really designed to sort of keep anything from actually being built, to make it punitive to build anything. And so that's the reason why these people are against it. They say that they've waived a whole bevy of environmental regulations in order to build the wall. They don't really have an argument that it actually causes environmental damage to this area. I mean, putting a bollard-style fence up is gonna cause very little in the way of damage, but they're just saying that they haven't gone through the process that one would normally have to go through to get the thing built. And I think that the Trump administration's answer to that would be that this is a national emergency. This is a national crisis. And so these, waiving the Paleontology Act or something is probably worth it for the border wall. That would be the Trump administration's answer to that. So another way that the Trump administration has made it more difficult for people to migrate illegally to the United States is they've dramatically increased the bureaucracy and red tape around getting into the United States, and the migrants themselves have made it more difficult to get here because there's just so many of them. So now we've got something like 1.2 million people in line claiming asylum. And as we've shown in the last several weeks from my trip to Guatemala, a lot of those people don't have any way of getting an asylum claim. I mean, more than 60% of them are going to be denied, but they're still claiming asylum and they still have to be processed. And that backlog has made it just ridiculous to try to get in. Here's what some of the people that are involved in that process have to say about how difficult it is right now for the people trying to get asylum. Check this out.
A judicial system that takes 5+ years to get a resolution on a case is not one that's functioning properly.
Just the fact that you're detaining people in such rural, isolated places makes it not only difficult for the person themselves to fight their case, but it even makes it nearly impossible for them to get attorneys to represent them.
The dysfunction here is really the point. The administration has made it very clear repeatedly that one of their goals is to limit immigration to the United States by making it so difficult and putting up so many obstacles in the path of people who want to come here, especially asylum seekers, that people will simply give up. And I think all of these little pinpricks are examples of those obstacles.
All right, that's all we've got for today, folks. Kind of a short podcast, but I'm on the road and we've got more good stuff coming for you. So thanks for watching. I appreciate you being here. Please like and share the podcast with your friends, and we'll see you again next week.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.